On this episode of the Wise Counsel Project, we conclude our interview with Kevin Avery from Atlanta's 104.7 The Fish Morning Show. Join us as Kevin provides wise counsel to men and women of faith.
All right, my wife and I have 3 daughters, and no sons, but I'm reading a book by John Eldredge called Fathered by God. Now, I love your thoughts on this having the sons in your life. A boy has a lot to learn in his journey to become a man, and he becomes a man only through the active intervention of his father and the fellowship of men. It can't happen any other way. Now we have a world full of uninitiated men, boys mostly, walking around in men's bodies with jobs and families, finances, and responsibilities. The passing on of masculinity was never completed if it was begun at all. There's no one there to show them the way. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that's true today?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the divorce rate and how many people are growing up, males in particular, without dad at home, that's a tough road to go. I mean, that was my situation. My parents split up when I was about 10. And I think a lot of the mistakes I made early on in my wife and my marriage probably were a result of not knowing how to do this thing called being a husband and being a companion and you know, just being the guy that I needed to be for her. And with my son, we've tried to instill all of those things in him of what it means to be a man, what it means to be a godly man, what it means to move forward with your life and make sound decisions and to help guide him. But yeah, I think the role of a dad, particularly with sons, is just vital. A lot of the problems that I think we have in our culture are a result of that, of guys who just, they don't know how to do this thing called being a husband or being a provider or being a protector.
And do you think other men can help step in and fill that role as a role model?
Oh,
for these
definitely.
Kids? You don't necessarily have to be a dad to help them become the man of God?
Definitely, and I think that men should proactively do that when they see maybe someone that's a newlywed or just starting out. Don't be afraid to offer advice or say like, hey, why don't me and you get together every Saturday? Because I've been doing this marriage thing for a couple of years now, and I'm like, you can pick my brain anytime you like. And I think most guys would be afraid to ask someone older that, but maybe by offering, that'll open the door for it.
And there's such a value in small group, in men getting together once a week, like you said, so the iron can sharpen iron, for them to share their experiences, their struggles, what has worked in their life.
Yeah, I ride bikes a lot, and a lot of guys that I hang out with, we have our small group on 2 wheels. We're out riding, and just the conversations that we have, encouraging each other about marriage, about a friend of mine is going to have his first child in September, and I've tried to give him people are giving him you're going to love it, you're going to be a great dad. I've tried to give him some of the unvarnished truth,
managed expectations,
right,
here.
of how difficult it is. And I said, it is great, and your life is going to change in wonderful ways, but it's also going to change in ways that you didn't see coming.
Yeah.
And you need to be ready for those. And I said, particularly the one thing that I shared with him was, I said, my wife, it seemed as if she wanted me to be mommy number 2. I just didn't have that in me. You need to be aware that that's going to happen, and if you can be ahead of that and tell your wife, you have wonderful attributes that are nurturing, that are caring, that are all these things. Even physically, you're able to care for the child in a way that I can't. But I'm there for you. It doesn't mean that I don't care. It doesn't mean that I'm not active and involved. It just means we have a different God-given skill set. So I've tried to share a lot of that with him.
And tell him, sleep now.
Right. Save up for diapers now.
What is your biggest passion? What gets Kevin going to, God, this is something I love?
I would say I would go to what I enjoy most in life, and that would be our family. Without a doubt, it's being a husband and being a father. I just really love both of those roles. Very aware that the role of dad has a limited number of days. Knowing how fast we might think, well, gosh, your youngest is 12, that's not limited. When I look at our son, and he's gone, he's moved on to Nashville, and he's got his career started, how quickly that went by. It's going to happen the same with the other 3. So I'm very passionate about trying to spend as much time, invest as much of me in them as I can. And then also our marriage. I mean, 25 years, it'll be 26 years in October. I'd like for the next 25, 26 years to be better than the first 25 or 26 were. And that, I think that takes intention. You can't just hope and send a card once a year, happy anniversary, and make that happen. You've got to be intentional about it. You've got to be humble about it. And I'd say that's the thing I'm most passionate about.
What's your favorite or go-to Bible verse? What's something you fall back on and say, wow?
I don't know. It's an interesting question, but I read one this morning that made me really consider. It was a conversation I was having with a guy over the weekend, and we were talking about the state of dating. And he was saying that he wasn't finding women that were worthy of his honor and his respect. And having daughters, that really irritated me. And I said, well, I don't think that it's necessarily about what you're seeing other people do. It's about you. It's about you being honorable and you being a righteous person. And I just read this morning in Matthew, it's odd in this time of the year to read the birth narrative, but it was the birth story. And it talked about Joseph when he first found out that Mary was pregnant and they had not been married yet. And it said, but because he was a righteous man, he was going to do things quietly. And I thought, well, wow, that spoke volumes about Joseph, about who he was. He was saying he was expecting the worst, that something terrible happened with his bride-to-be, but because of who he was in God, he wasn't going to behave in a way that would dishonor her. So favorite verse, I don't know that that's my favorite, but that's one that really had a huge impact on me today because it spoke volumes beyond just that situation. It said to us as men of God, if we're going to be righteous, we've got to be so centered on Christ and on God that all this stuff that happens around us, and it's going to happen till the day we die, we've got to hold ourselves to a higher accountability than just the circumstance. So, don't know that that's my favorite, but that's one that
it's
had
on your heart right now.
Huge impact on me this morning.
What can we do to keep that focus? What have you found is the best way or ways for you to keep that focus, Christ-centered focus?
Well, I know when I lose it is when I don't spend time in the Word, when I don't spend time in prayer, when I don't spend time doing those things that, taking it all the way back to the beginning of the conversation, that will sharpen me as a person. When I do spend time reading the Word, when I spend time in prayer, when I spend time just being with God, just quietly being with God, that's when I wind up being more focused. It's almost like you can't go to a place of stillness if you don't know where it is. You can't go to a place of calm, rational, godly decision making if you don't visit there on a regular basis. You know, if you don't do that on a regular basis, you can't find it when you need it.
Yeah, be quiet and know that I am God. If we don't practice being quiet, in that time, in that moment, it's tough.
And that is so hard for us, especially in our society, being quiet. Sure. We're never quiet. We're constantly filling our time with something. So taking the time to hit pause and just be still, even if you feel like, well, this is a waste of time, you know, your mind's wandering or whatever, something's going to come that's really going to bless you, and that's going to get you through the tough times.
Music's obviously a huge part of your life, something you deal with on a daily basis. You know how music can bring out so many emotions in people, take us back to a place, a time, a person. What is the song that just has that impact on you that you love playing? It's the favorite song that elicits that kind of emotional response from you.
Yeah, there's a lot of artists, I think, that have had that impact on me. Stephen Curtis Chapman. I was just listening to a song of his called Speechless. I don't know if you remember that song. I was on a bike ride. It came on. I had my headphones on. I was out on a ride, and I had tears welling up listening to that song. It's not a song I think a lot of people would get emotional about. I don't know what it is about that song that touches me so much, but it did. And I'm out on the Silver Comet Trail by myself, and I'm tearing up listening to this song, Speechless. So that one does. Rich Mullins was an artist that had a huge impact on me in my life. He had a song called Hold Me Jesus that we play right now, a different version of it by Big Daddy Weave, that the lyrics of that song, no matter what you're going through, will just really get you through a tough time.
What about this Cinderella?
Oh my gosh.
From a dad's
I'm gonna start
perspective.
crying just thinking about that song. Yeah, that one is that one will just, it really brings into focus how quick the years go by. I think Stephen Curtis Chapman, who's going to be the headliner at Celebrate Freedom. Thank you for making the free admission possible for all of our listeners.
Glad to be a part of it.
I think because his life, he's married, and he has a lot of kids, and he has been, I think, living his life very genuinely in front of all of us through good times and bad. I think that's what resonates with his music so much with me. So much of what he goes through, I think we as men go through all the time.
Final question for you. When you turn off the microphone, what do you want your legacy to be?
I would like for people to know that I wasn't perfect, far from it. But just like them, I was pursuing God, going after Him with everything I had, good days and bad. Sometimes I did a great job at it, sometimes I didn't, but undergirding it all was something I think that my mother instilled in me as a kid, that no matter what, God loves you, period. I would like for people to know that was a guy that always knew God loved him.
Kevin, thank you. I really appreciate your time, your insight here on the Wise Counsel Project.
Yeah, thanks for having me.